Welcome back to the Life and Listings podcast. Today I have Michelle joining us. Hey, Michelle.
Hi. Thanks for having me, Jen.
Thanks for coming in. So for anyone that is listening that has not met you yet, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Sure. Fun thing to answer. I feel like a lot of people can relate, but I have been in the industry working with mortgage and real estate professionals since 2014. I left corporate America like most people do when they realize that it's not for them, right? Why do people get into real estate? Why do people get into mortgage? Why do people become entrepreneurs like you and I? Because we don't want to work in corporate America. So I left corporate in 2014, launched Berman-Mikel later that year. And really on the personal side, I'm a mom, I'm a wife. I have a 3.5-year-old who is everything, but also a lot. I think all moms can relate to that. His name is Knox. He is named after Fort Knox. I'm not technically a military wife in the true sense of my husband's not active duty anymore, but my husband is now medically retired and still works for the military as a civilian contractor. So we spend a lot of time around the military. All my best girlfriends are all military wives. And so I definitely live that lifestyle with the exception of luckily, my husband doesn't deploy anymore. Huge blessing. But aside from that, I'm a hardcore worker-outer. I love fitness. I run half marathons pretty regularly and still CrossFit. Was a competitive swimmer for 20 plus years. Actually swam for Rutgers for any of our East Coast listeners. And then ended up graduating and became a competitive CrossFitter for 7 years before hurting my back and tearing a rotator cuff and decided that maybe I should take a break, which is actually how I met my husband, ironically, during my break. And then fast forward to today, I run primarily, but I still CrossFit a couple days a week and mostly because I love my friends and I love being strong. So that's kind of like the fast version.
Amazing. I love how you do all different types of fitness. I feel like that just shows probably your personality type. You're just probably like all in on different things.
Yeah. Sad but true. I get very, very addicted and, I swimming most of my childhood and then most of my life, honestly, 20 plus years. I'm 35 later this year, but swimming was my life. I used to joke about I don't need perfume, any of the Bath and Body Works stuff that all of us as kids we used to love, right? I'm like, I don't need that because chlorine's my perfume. So it used to be, a funny joke, but swimming really taught me so much. And it's such a huge part of who I am, not just as a human, but as a business owner and someone that serves the community of the real estate and mortgage space exclusively now. But for me, fitness is, I can't do life without it because to me, it's how I refill my cup. Yeah. People are always saying you can't serve out of an empty cup or you can't pour out of one that doesn't have anything in it. And it's so true. And going on a 2-hour run, a lot of people would be like, ugh. And even me in the past, I used to say that who would want to run a marathon? Like what? And now that's 2 hours of just me time. No intrusions, no 3-year-old that wants to play Legos, no husband that says, hey, can we do this? Or, hey, I need this done. It's just me. And it's my time with God and it's my time to refill who I am so that I can serve people. And regardless of what fitness you choose, I think the point of the matter is choose something because it just makes such a huge difference. And I know you know.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. There's certain days where I'm like, it's gloomy outside, kind of like not feeling it. But then you go work out for even just like a little bit or just get your body moving. And it makes it such a big difference for yourself. And then you feel like you can give more to your clients, your employees, your kids, everybody, benefits from it.
1,000%. That's so true.
So you have an interesting way of looking at marketing. I want to hear a little bit about what you do. I'm sure our listeners will be really intrigued because you only work in the real estate space, correct?
Yeah, real estate and mortgage. So I serve real estate and mortgage professionals exclusively. And then I have kind of by happenstance entrepreneurs or people that are in sales that will reach out outside of that. But that's my bread and butter. Yes.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what you're teaching people.
Yeah. So it's a very unique way of looking at social media as a whole, right? I'm not your social media coach. That's not my title. And really, to me, my specialty, or as you say, what is your superpower? My superpower is social media prospecting, meaning teaching people how to prospect through social media. And I honestly really believe that if people understand and start to pay attention to this concept, they'll realize that it really is the future of sales as a whole. But for years, businesses, professionals, whether you're in real estate, whether you're in mortgage, or whether you're listening to this and you're outside of that, we've been told that building a following on social media is our key, right? Growing an audience. But that doesn't equal revenue. It never has, unless you're trying to be a social influencer where you get paid by views for a reel, which none of us listening to this, or me, myself included, that's not what we're doing it for. That's not why we got on social media in the first place. We got on social media because we saw it as an opportunity to get our name out to more people, which then in turn could create business for us. But the reality is we don't need more likes, right? We don't need more video views. We don't need more people liking things. We don't even need more people commenting on things. We need more clients. We need more people actually reaching out to us saying, Jennifer, Michelle, I want to work with you guys. So what does that tell us? It means that the obsession with vanity metrics, how many followers I have, how many profile visits do I have? Or for real estate agents, one of the big ones is how many leads have I gotten? And I hear this all the time. How many leads have you gotten from social media? And the answer is yes, that can happen, but it's not going to happen if you have a reel go viral. That's not what we're doing it for. We're creating this content. We're creating this piece of content so that people can decide that they want to work with us based off of two key factors. Do I like you as a human being? And number two, can you solve the problem that I have, right? Are you educating me in a way that makes me realize you can solve my problem? So the real issue, and really what I teach, is teaching people how to not just go down this wormhole or live on the hamster wheel of content creation, but instead to teach them how to take the content they're producing and develop a conversion strategy out of it. So I am a social media prospecting coach, not a social media coach. They're different. And so I think it's sort of the illusion of influence, right? Of like, more followers means I'm going to make more money. That's the opposite of true. And honestly, it's misleading because it's really counterproductive. You're telling people, go try to get viral, but virality doesn't equate to money.
I love that because there's so many times that working with teams that we're talking about their marketing as a whole. And they're like, I need to do this, I need to do that, and I need more followers, I need all these things. And I'm like, no, wait a second. We need to really dig into your strategy and make sure that you're getting something out of it. Going and getting 10,000 realtor followers, unless you're trying to get referrals or something like that, which is fine. But I think a lot of times they go down the wrong path with social media and they're trying to figure out why they're putting all this effort and not making any money. And they get frustrated. So,
well, and everyone gets frustrated by that, right? Me even, I hate creating content. Like, I hate it. I hate the whole, like, let's put my phone on a, whatever the ring light is with a little stand, like a tripod, and I'm standing in front of the camera. To me, it's so hard to do that. And I do this for a living. So what I teach people to understand is that if you put yourself in an element where you can be yourself 100% of the time. I have a client, for example, right now, two different really good ones that I'll give you as an example. One in Riverside, California, Southern SoCal. For those of you guys who are familiar with Riverside, some people have never heard of that place, but that's okay. It's a really cool town. It's actually booming right now because people are leaving central LA area to go more inland. It's a lot more affordable, yada, yada, right? But my client there, he is a newer agent. He's only been doing real estate for about 2 years. He actually was a professor of statistics for about 15 years before deciding to get his real estate license. When I was working with him on this, I said, okay, well, you're struggling with content, because that was the first thing he said. He's like, Michelle, I don't know what to post. How many times have you heard that, Jen? Every day. I don't know what to post. Okay, well, let's talk about this for a second. What do you do outside of work that makes you a human being? He goes, well, I play basketball a lot. My son, I'm the coach of my son's basketball team. I'm a math professor on the side. I don't really do it anymore. I just stay there because I like working with the school and I love math. And I was like, great. No, I don't even need it anymore. Those two things right now, your first value series, which is what I call it, is going to be about math. We're going to create an analogy between math and some pain point that you're solving for your clients as a real estate agent. And he was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, you're going to create an analogy between your love of math and why you love math so much, and a pain point that you solve for your ideal clients in the real estate space. He goes, well, I don't really know who my ideal client is. I've only been doing this for 2 years. And I'm like, well, I can help you solve that. That's another question. But the reality of it is he was stuck in this content of making the same thing that every other real estate agent was producing, buying the $60 a month subscription where he got the template sent to his email and he was using them, or the kind of canned content that we all see. And he was hating it and he wasn't getting any business off of it. And same thing. So I said, okay, no more. Now that we know you love math, and now that we know you have some pain points that you want to solve for your clients, let's put you in that element. So we ended up creating an analogy. We used ChatGPT to do it. It's really fun. We turned it into a 5-part series. He recorded all 5 of those videos in front of a whiteboard with a bunch of math on it behind him that he was handwriting as he was going through the videos. And he ended up buying an Albert Einstein t-shirt off Amazon to wear in the videos. And he texted me afterwards, and I was checking on him, and I'm like, Tommy, how are you feeling now that all these videos are out? And he's like, Michelle, that was like kind of fun. I'm like, great, let's keep going. What's your next series? He's like, I want to bring in basketball. Right now we're doing basketball, creating an analogy between basketball and a pain point he's having. His entire next series, he recorded it on a basketball court. So you're putting him and you're putting yourself in an element that you actually really enjoy doing. And it doesn't stop there, right? I could nerd out on this with you forever, but your content is just half the battle. But the real issue with content right now is you're producing the same thing as everybody else, which in turn makes you the same as everybody else.
Yep.
Your true differentiator is who are you as a human outside of work? And then you produce content around it. Now we have to prospect, right? You can't just sit there on the content and expect for it to do everything for you. It won't. It's just not going to happen. So that's where the prospecting side pours gas, or imagine putting a can of fuel on top of an already burning fire. Now it's really going. And so that's where prospecting and that shift from that mindset of I'm producing content just to sell something. Instead, let's shift our mindset to I'm producing content to create connections, knowing that the connection points I'm talking about, basketball, math. I have a client doing a series about bourbon right now. So fun. I have a female client of mine who's doing an entire series on wine. She has a wine box subscription she gets delivered every month. So she's turning it into that piece. But the point of where I'm going with that, and I say all of that to you to say that conversations or those topics of conversation become the foundation of how you prospect.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start sending messages, when you start commenting on content, when you start creating leverage through your platform, the things that you're going to end up talking about are those things that you love doing anyway, because that's how humans work.
Yeah. And you're making real connections. You're probably way more likely to close because they probably have some sort of common interest with you, or they're feeling like they're getting to know you, rather than you're going and copying what you saw on $1 million listing and you're sitting there all awkward trying to make these videos that are not your personality. So then you show up and they find out that you are a math teacher and basketball coach, and it doesn't even match what they saw on your Instagram.
Yep. So it begs the question, are you who you say you are? Right? And I mean, I think you just nailed that. Are you who you say you are? Can I go look at your Instagram and see exactly who I just spelt and saw in person? And vice versa. If I meet you online and I then see you in real life and that doesn't match, then we have another big problem. So whether they come to you through social and then you meet them in real life, or whether you meet them in real life and then you refer them to your social as your business card to continue the conversation, which, I mean, you and I both, I'm sure, have done it both ways. It can be done really poorly if you leave that piece of it out.
Yeah. So you're coaching these agents and lenders on not only their content that they're making, but then the entire follow-up plan after that. So where does that kind of end, right? Like, where does this prospecting end in your coaching world? Are you kind of following them to like maybe their CRM? Like, are you kind of helping them with that bridge?
Yeah, so the content bridge to the prospecting bridge, just so we can start there, is through leverage. So anyone who knows the word leverage or knows what the word means, this will be an easy concept to understand. But the fastest way I can explain it quickly is we're trying to build a bridge between someone you already have a relationship with and someone you don't, right? So how did I get to you, Jen, right? Well, I met you because I had a relationship with someone else that invited me into a group that you're now a part of. We then connected, right? That's leverage. I have leverage in sending you a message and saying, hey, I have a podcast, you have a podcast, we should do a podcast. So I have leverage, but now how do you do that through social? That's the key. So what I do when I'm coaching our clients is we have a tracker. It's called the engagement tracker. It's 5 days. The way I describe it analogy wise is imagine a swimming pool. No pun intended. Yes, that's the analogy of me being a swimmer coming into real life. But the engagement tracker, think of it as a giant Excel spreadsheet with columns, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Each of those 5 days of the week, you have a very targeted outbound strategy, meaning you have a grouping of people in each of those 5 days that you are very intentionally targeting. One of those days is your CRM, where we're bringing the data in from your CRM into your tracker. Now, is it fast and is it easy to do so? No, because there is no CRM on the planet right now that I know of, and correct me if I'm wrong. And if you are hearing this and you have or know of a CRM that does it, please message me. But the only CRM that I know of that even remotely touches this is Follow Up Boss, But what happens is you have a client enter your dashboard or into your CRM, and then it tries to pull their social channels. Most of them don't do it well or at all. So meaning it'll be the wrong account, or it's an outdated one that they're not using. So there's no content there, right? Like or it's the wrong person entirely. But my point in saying that is, yes, we bring your CRM into it, but the reality of it is it's data entry. It's going to take work. So most of you guys who are listening to this won't do the work, because you'll say, hey, I have to go find my 500 people in my database and go cross-check and find them all on social. I don't want to do that. Okay, well, then you're not going to win on social in that category. You might crush the other days, but that particular day, you're not going to do well. Now, there are some tactics to cross-pollinate, which I do encourage my clients to do. One of them is a follow me on the gram email, where you're sending it out once a month, alluding to the things that are specifically going to be in those value series topics, right? So the basketball analogy or the math analogy, the wine, whatever. So you're sending an email to your database to get them from your CRM to your social channel, whatever that is, right? Whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, doesn't matter. I have clients that are using YouTube as their primary platform. So it's your choice. But the prospecting piece specifically is through the passions, through the pain points, and then we tie that into the conversations we're having now in the specific category. So the lane line analogy, meaning on Monday, you're only focused on engaging with the people that are on your Monday, Tuesday only with Tuesday, Wednesday only with Wednesday. And all 5 of those days are structured very intentionally to make sure that you're talking really intentionally with the right people that you want to be doing business with. And more importantly, in the areas that you want to be doing business in the first place, or can. So growing a hyper-local following is very possible, but you have to have a very structured outreach plan.
I love that, because I was in my follow-up class earlier today and realizing like some of the people that it was pulling social profiles for, I was like, that doesn't even say the same name. It's not even the same thing. But you're taking a follow-up plan basically from a CRM and you're utilizing it on Instagram or social media, wherever that is, like you would prospecting wise, which is so smart, because you have all of these people, you just maybe don't have their email yet, or you've got all of these people engaging. I mean, I know most of us have tons of Facebook friends that we probably, I know I don't intentionally go back through and like engage with people that just kind of like, when I'm scrolling, it's making me feel like I need to go back and like restructure my prospecting, right? So
yeah.
And you've got a big launch coming up of a product, correct?
Yeah. So I've notoriously been known as a private coach, and I love coaching on the one-on-one side. To me, we can move the needle just so much more than we can in a group setting. But there has been a massive pull for people to want to be in a group coaching program with me. So I've listened to the audience and is officially rolling out most likely April 1st. It'll officially be available for purchase. But right now, my superpower bread and butter program is the private coaching, where you can buy my course and get private coaching with me. But the group coaching program, I'm actually really excited about. I think there's a lot of people that can't afford to do private coaching, but really, really want this help and really want to be able to take forward action. So I'm doing a little bit differently than traditional group coaching programs, where we're going to have a call every month. There's going to be a workbook attached to every single monthly call. Very actionable, very tactical. Like, yes, you need to submit your homework. There's going to be a girl on my team that is designated for you to submit your homework to. So it's not your sort of just show up to the calls whenever you feel like showing up to the calls type of group coaching. And I'm hopeful that people enjoy it as much as I think they will. But really, my goal is just to be able to serve more people that can't necessarily tap into that higher end product yet.
Yeah. At least start working with you. They're going to see some results, and then they can come back and do one-on-one coaching.
Yeah.
So I wanted to dig into something that you had mentioned. I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about this, but you wanted to talk about what your handshake truly means.
Oh yeah, this is my favorite conversation. So I'm so glad that you brought this up. And really, this whole thing happened. I was actually sitting in a conference with my coach. It was his annual conference that he hosts. And I had a big notebook in front of me, very similar to the one that's in front of me right now. And I just had like a light bulb go off. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I get it now. And where it came from, or where the handshake conversation came from, was when I shake someone's hand, it's my job to articulate what it is that I can do for them in a way that makes them want to continue the conversation, which then in turn creates opportunity for them to now go, hey, Michelle, do you have a business card? No, go follow me on Instagram. And then when they follow me on Instagram, I am exactly who I say I am, right? But more importantly, I'll tell you a very quick story, and I'll say it very, very fast for sake of time, but I'm not a big person. I'm about 5'3" on a good day. Most people think I'm a lot taller than that when they see me on Zoom. So it's always like a funny, whenever I show up anywhere, they're like, oh my gosh, I thought you were way taller. I'm like, no, I'm 5'3" if I stand up all the way straight, which is not like. So the funny thing about this is when someone would meet me, or if I was in a mortgage or real estate conference, the natural thing is, oh, Michelle, you in mortgage, what company do you work for? Oh, Michelle, you're in real estate. What brokerage do you work with? Right? That's the question that would always come out of everybody's mouth, which to no fault of their own, but I don't do that. I don't sell real estate and I don't do loans. So when I would answer the question, I would say, I own an Instagram marketing company. And two things happened. One, the conversation almost always ended abruptly, meaning no longer were they interested in having a conversation with me. And then the second thing that was really interesting that I started really paying attention to, pissed me off enough to go make a massive change, was people would stop looking at me. They would stop making eye contact. They would be looking over me. They'd be looking around me, pretty much doing anything they could to get out of the conversation without being rude. And it really, really didn't set with me in the sense of, what am I doing wrong here? What am I saying that is making them not want to talk to me? Because I do own an Instagram marketing company. Like my trademark for my company, it's like, what do? It's Instagram marketing. That's what it is. But it's not actually what I do. It's not actually who I am and what problem I solve. So the handshake piece became a conversation around, how do we create a relationship with someone in a matter of 2.5 seconds? Like, think elevator pitch.
Yeah.
That's all we've got. But we have to do it in a way that makes them really, really inquisitive and want to ask more questions. So instead, I went to work on my handshake and how do I shake someone's hand and answer the question of, what do I do for a living? And what it helped me discover, right? And quickly, when I answer that question now, I say, I teach real estate and mortgage professionals how to understand the power of leverage to create opportunity through social. People will naturally be like, what do you mean? How? Which then in turn creates more conversation. Now I get to nerd out and go into all the things that I love talking about. So I've now won mind share, right? Or mind space. They're now paying attention to me. So that's first and foremost. But more importantly, I've now created an opportunity for them to want to connect with me further past that conversation. But where the primary skill comes into play. So you were asking me, like, what's your superpower before we started this? And to me, it was through the handshake assignment that I really discovered what my primary skill was. And when I was sitting in that conference and I had I hope I can say this out loud, my oh shit moment of like, oh my gosh, I get it. It was, Michelle, your primary skill, what is it? Because if I can identify what that is, that then in turn is how I now answer your question of, what do you do for a living? And so the primary skill part of it is, what industry, where did you come from before you got into real estate? Most people don't start in real estate. Very few people get their real estate license at 18 and do real estate from 18 until they retire. Like, that doesn't happen. Most of us end up in the real estate or mortgage space after or as a second career. And so you came with a primary skill from somewhere before that into real estate. My client who was a math professor, the guy is a nerd with numbers. Like, he's so good at the numbers of anything. He can calculate how much you're going to make at closing if you're a seller before any of the documents even come out. That's just how his brain works. So he has this superpower, which for me as a client, right, as a homeowner myself, the number one question I always ask when I'm selling my house is, give me the bottom line. I want the number that is going in my bank account at the end of this, because that will tell us if what our selling number needs to be, right? Or what we're comfortable selling at. So long story short, your primary skill, what superpower do you have, or did you come into real estate with, right? And we have to dig that out of people. Usually it takes some coaching to get them to figure out how to articulate what it is that really is. But that then in turn becomes the foundation of how you create content, and then how you solve that problem of you're one of 5,000 real estate agents in your city, because now all of a sudden, not only are you answering the question better when you meet someone in real life, but your social is creating that differentiator, sort of who am I factor that makes you different than John Doe down the road.
What you just said is so powerful, right? You're talking about social media, and then huge takeaway for me, just because obviously I'm a vendor too. And so I've experienced that same thing where someone will come up and be like, oh yeah, like, who do you work for? What do you do? Blah, blah. And the second they find out I'm a vendor, they're like, oh, No, because they don't want to be sold, right? And it's the same thing for all of our listeners that are realtors or lenders. That's a lot of times when you're reaching out, people just instantly close off because they don't want to be sold. So I think that's why it's even more important to be prospecting the way that you're prospecting on social media, because they're getting to know you on a personal level, right? You like animals, you like wine, you like bourbon, you like math, whatever that is. They're starting to connect with you and they feel like they know you. So then when you do start talking about real estate, they're not just instantly like, salesperson, back off.
Well, it's a narrative, and I'll end with this point, and I know sure you'll have more questions, but I think the biggest thing I can tell you is the narrative, right? We have to control the narrative. So when I shake someone's hand and I say I own an Instagram marketing company, what I just did was I gave them control of the narrative, because their brain is going to say whatever they think, or it's going to tell them whatever pre-existing experiences that they've had with somebody that is an Instagram marketing or is a social media coach. They're going to come up with all of their own thoughts and stories. They're going to recall memories, recall experiences, all the things, which means that they're in control of the narrative, not me. But if I can do a really good job at articulating what it is that I do very specifically in a way that makes them really inquisitive and want to ask me more questions, I'm in control of the narrative. So being able to say, I'm not a social media coach, I'm a social media prospecting coach. One is creating influence and having this virality attached to it, which I'm not saying that's not something that you should spend time learning how to do. I'm not saying you shouldn't do better videos. I 1,000% agree with the need for that. But what I am telling you is that virality is not how you make money through social. Utility is, meaning how are we utilizing what we already have in the relationships that are already there. Think of going deeper, not wider. We have to go deeper. We have to build more quality relationships with the people that we already are knowing for certain can be referral sources to us. So we have to utilize the platform that way. I have one other thought that my brain just told me I had to say because it's so relevant to this, but when I built Beyond the Method, which is the name of my course, in the middle of building it, I didn't realize how I had come up with the structure of it. Like I just did it, right? I just went into robot, like go get it done because I had a deadline for myself. Fast forward, I launched my course in 2019. Fast forward to that same conference. I'm sitting in my coach's conference in last August with a notebook in front of me in that same exact moment. And I realized, oh my gosh, I get it, right? I built Beyond the Method the same way that I swam the mile, right? So I swam the mile competitively as far as like what my race was. If you're familiar with swimming, it's the longest event on the program. Females weren't even allowed to do it in the Olympics until the Olympics before Paris. So Paris was the second one. And I swam the mile backwards, which means I was reverse engineering the process of swimming the event. So I would count down from 16/100s until I'd get to 9. And then once I got into the 9 or single digits, then I would find a second gear. So I was reverse engineering the race. And so I had all of these moments hitting me at the same time in the same keynote from my coach at this conference thinking, oh my gosh, I not only now have my primary skill completely 100% identified, which in my case is reverse engineering. I am an expert at taking the result that I have created and undoing it to then be able to give it back to somebody else. That is really where my primary skill lies. So that in turn is how I created Beyond the Method, because this isn't something I just threw together because I just thought might be cool. Like it's actually how I walk my walk every single day. And then that changed how I shaked people's hands, which then in turn shaped the trajectory of where my company is to today, which is wild to think about. But all it takes is one little spark for you to all like just put it all together and have your oh shit moment of I get it now. And it's been really, really exciting for me to see other people so successful through the process that I've been able to create, because it's just the best possible affirmation. Truly.
That's so fun. You spend all the time building these things, and now you're able to hand it to all of these individuals that are now having the same aha moment, hopefully, on their end, and they can naturally start getting business from it and grow their businesses. So I feel like that is like the best affirmation, right? Like you're doing something right.
Yeah.
Michelle, this has been awesome. So many little nuggets in here. I'm leaving with so many different takeaways. If anyone's listening and wants to get in touch with you or learn more about your course or your upcoming launch, where should we send them?
Instagram, hands down the best place. I answer all my own DMs, so please feel free to message me, Berman Media Social, or you can just type in Michelle Berman-Mikel, all one word, it'll come up. I also have a really cool workbook I'll give you. So Jen, if you want to put it in the show notes for everybody, they can download it.
Okay.
It's a really cool workbook. It's really tied to that handshake conversation of how do you identify what your primary skill is and where do you pull that from, and then how do you create your own series with your passions and your pain points. So you can download that and go through the workbook. It's also attached to a webinar that you can watch. It's not very long. It's like 30 minutes. So if you guys want to watch the webinar and do the workbook as you go through the webinar, that's what that is. So I'll make sure that everybody has access to that too.
Perfect. I'll drop that link down in the show notes. And then if you're watching on YouTube, it'll be down in the description too. So Michelle,
Awesome.
thanks so much for joining us today. This has been awesome. And I will see you again very soon.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.